me access to the screen?
Yes, you should have access to the screen.
Okay. Okay, I'm hoping we're not having those issues again. Hang on. There we go. You see my screen?
Yes, we can see it in the presentation mode. Perfect. Thank you, Christina.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And this presentation will be on the Alaska Performance Scholarship and the AEG. Thank you for joining us. First off, the APS, well, it was a program that was created in 2010. The class of 2011 was the class to some of the first recipients. I remember when they were putting it all together, and it was such a great big deal, and we were so excited to have it, and we still are. It is a merit-based scholarship for students, and of course, educators and parents are heavily involved. But this based on merit, it allows anyone to try to qualify for it, which is great. The max on it, and we'll go over all these details in just a moment, $47.55 annually. It's good for 8 semesters or 8 disbursements, rather, total of 4 years, but they can use it anytime within a 6-year period from the time that they graduate. And the good thing about it is that it can be used for college and or training inside the state of Alaska. Of course, that's how most state financial aid works. The academic eligibility, there's basically 3 criteria. You have to complete a rigorous high school curriculum as set forth by the school district. So that will vary from school district to school district. Of course, you have to have a minimum GPA of 2.5, which allows more students to get in on the scholarship. And you still have to, regardless of rumors that may be out there, it is still a requirement to have an ACT or an SAT or the work keys test. So if things change, of course, we will let you know. There is talk that that's a possibility, but as of yet, it takes more than an act of just ACPE deciding we're going to change that. Of course, we're all in favor of it because it worked well under the pandemic, but it takes an act of the state legislature and various other powers that be to make the final call on that. So we can't, as an agency, just say we want this, therefore snap our finger and it's done. It will take time if that does happen. The only application for the APS, the Alaska Performance Scholarship, is that a student fill out a FAFSA, and it should be done before June 30th of every year prior to the student starting that academic year. So, for example, if they were going to start this academic year for the 23-24 academic year, they would have had to have filed the FAFSA by June 30th. That's the priority deadline. And basically what that priority deadline means, I should go over that, is that in the unlikely event that we run out of money for that year, say maybe there's a whole lot of students that qualify for the APS, it will go by priority deadline. So a student can still fill it out after June 30th, but we don't recommend that they do that because they increase their odds that if we run out of money, they may not get it. So we still recommend that they meet that priority deadline. That said, in many cases, if a student has missed that deadline for whatever reason, it does not necessarily mean they're not going to get it, provided they met all of the other qualifications. And by the way, feel free to send your questions if you have them in the chat. And hopefully, Dominica, if you will, just help monitor them for me. I'm not good at multitasking on Zoom, so that would be good.
Yes, I am monitoring the chat box.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the award levels, we'll begin with level 1. This award's $4,755 per year. And again, that's divided by semesters, 2 semesters. Now, a student can divvy that amount into 3 semesters if they're going to go to the school year. I don't recommend that they do that because keep in mind that the student is only eligible for 8 disbursements. So if they use 3 disbursements, their first academic year, that lessens the others. It's always best to just use the 2 per academic year. So 47.55 per year. That's with a 3.5 GPA or higher, an ACT score of 25 or SAT of 1210. It does not have to be both ACT or SAT. It could be either or they could do the work keys if they're going the career technical route, CTE. They can take the work keys, which can be done at any of the job centers locally. That's where they do the work keys testing, and they have to have a combination score of 13 or higher for the CTE. Now, if they qualify under the CTE, it can only be used for the CTE. I want to make sure that everybody understands that. In other words, if they took the work keys and had a 3.5 but did not take the ACT or the SAT, then they can only qualify under the work keys, under the CTE, not both. However, if they qualify for level 1 with the ACT and SAT, they can use it for either the collegiate route or the CTE route, if that makes sense. Okay, level 2 is 3566. That's with a 3.0 or greater, ACT of 23 or an SAT of 1130. And again, the work keys is always going to be 13. Level 3 is 2378 with a 2.5 and an ACT of 21 or an SAT of 1060 or the work keys of 13. Now, if a student qualifies with, say they have a 3.5, but they only have a 21 on their ACT, they would only be eligible for level 3. They have to be able to check each of the boxes listed to be able to qualify for that level. So if they have a lower ACT but a higher GPA, well, then they would fall under the level 3, if that makes any sense. So and with the work keys, it's just even. So that's with the test scores and the GPA. With the curriculum, there are basically 2 routes that the students can qualify under. They either can qualify under the math and science curriculum or the social studies and language curriculum. Under the math and science, it's pretty straightforward. They have 4 years. A credit or a unit, if it's ever shown that way, is basically a year. So they would have to have 4 years of science, 4 years of math, 4 years of social studies, 4 years of language arts. Of course, the school district decides which of those science, math, social studies, language arts count, but I'm going to give you a basic template or a frame of reference to go by here in just a minute. So they can qualify under that route, either the math and science. If they're not the math and science person, they can qualify under the social studies track, which is 3 years of science, 3 years of math, 4 years of social studies, 4 years of foreign language, and 4 years of language arts and 2 years of a foreign language. It does have to be the same foreign language, and that's pretty open. It could be 2 years of Spanish, 2 years of German, 2 years of French, 2 years of native language, 2 years of sign language. Again, that is determined by the school district because not every school district offers all of the foreign languages, so they get to use that determination. And by the way, most school districts, I don't want to say all because I don't know all of the school districts, I just know the Anchorage School District. Most of them require, on average, 3 science, 3 math, 4 social studies, and 4 languages anyway. So you're basically looking at the student qualifying for 1 or 2 more math classes, years of math, or the foreign language to qualify for this, and the rigorous curriculum, which I said I'd give you some core samples. For the math, it does have to be Algebra 1 or higher. So any of the maths that you see here will count. The sciences are listed here, and again, there's a little bit of wiggle room with the school district, so check with your school district. The language arts listed here and the social studies. I'm going to take a quick check for, okay, so, and once the student qualifies for whatever level they are eligible for, then they are given 6 years from the time they graduate to use that. And that's a good thing because a lot of students will, in Alaska, choose to go out of state, but it doesn't always work if they go out of state. So we recommend that everybody try to qualify for the APS, even if they think they're going out of state, because sometimes things happen, life happens, and it wasn't all it was cracked up to be in the beautiful state of Arizona or Montana or wherever the student went, and they decide to come back after a year of college. Or maybe they were just homesick, whatever the case may be. That's just 1 year that's gone by. They still have 5 years to pick up. And if they were eligible when they graduated from high school, they can still use this scholarship for the remainder of the time. Or let's say they went out of state and they did get their degree, they did it in 4 years. Well, they have 2 years left on this eligibility. They can come back to the state of Alaska, go to one of our colleges within the state of Alaska, an eligible APS qualifying school, and they can use it to start a master's. It's still their money. They have 2 years left to use whatever funding is left over in that APS. So it's always worth trying to qualify for the scholarship before the student graduates from high school. Now, let's talk about ACT and SAT. These are some sites to get more resources for test preparation, but we highly recommend that students take the ACT or the SAT, whichever one they're going to take, between September and March, not any time after March. When a student takes the ACT or SAT in those late dates in the school year, and we have this every single year this happens there, and then we always have to send them to Felicia and keep our fingers crossed that their test scores eke in the nick of time, and it doesn't always happen. So we want to make sure that the students have all of their test scores and everything ready by the time they graduate from high school. And the best time to do that is to take tests, ACT or SAT, between September and March, not in the summer months afterwards. They should really plan, and the go-to people and counselors should really encourage that they take them early so that they have everything lined up, because there's always bound to be someone that falls through the cracks. That's just nature. That naturally happens. And if that happens, it's easier to troubleshoot and get everything squared away, so that they can start on time and that they get their money and that they don't have to wait for the next year or have to fix situations that may be too hard to fix after the fact. So those dates are crucial. Summertime testing is not recommended. I'm not even sure any have eked through, although we've tried to have some do that because they got misinformation. So we like to make sure that they know to take this early and get it done. Private and homeschool students are also eligible for the APS. They just go through a slightly different process. They submit a request once they complete all of their courses. They submit a request to the Department of Education and Early Development, to DEED, to determine their APS eligibility. That form can be accessed through our website. They must submit it by July 15th, again, in a timely manner, to get everything worked through the system in a timely manner so that they're not waiting and trying to figure out what's happening with their APS money. They simply go to our website. They can either do a search on our website or download what's called the APS Private School Homeschool Eligibility Form, Determination Application Form. They fill it out, they submit it, get it in, again, by July 15th. And then they also, again, remember that they do have to submit the FAFSA by June 30th of every year. So this is a last dollar amount scholarship, which is awarded after all other funding has been used, and whatever unmet costs are left over, then that's when the scholarship kicks in. And what this basically means is, say a student, and in most cases, a student who's eligible for APS is usually, but not always, depending on the school, but they have a high probability that they may also be eligible for the UA Scholars, for example. Well, they would use all of the UA Scholars money first. If they were eligible for a grant or any kind of other scholarships, they use all of that money. and they use the APS scholarship money last. So even though they may be eligible for the $47.55, which is the full amount of the APS, if they have all these other grants and they've met the cost of attendance, then they may not need to use that full amount of the $47.55. What we recommend is that a student, to be able to use or maximize the amount of the scholarship, is to never indicate, if there's ever a question on a FAFSA that used to say, I don't think this is going to be on the new FAFSA anyway, but if they indicate that they're not, or that their parent is living off campus, if they're going to be living with a parent, that usually frees up that money that they can use the maximum amount of the award that they're eligible. They've earned it. It's rightfully their money. And so they should be able to use that money. So they should indicate either they're living on campus or off campus, even if they're living with a parent, because some parents do require that students pay rent and or help buy groceries. So they should be able to use the money that they were eligible for. So the EFC is going to be changing to the Student Aid Index, to SAI, so that will change. But this is still a last dollar scholarship, which means that all other free money in the form of scholarships and grants, not loans, just scholarships and grants, will be used first, and then the APS will be used as the last dollar scholarship. Again, to apply, there's no specific application to apply for the APS. They simply fill out the FAFSA by June 30th. This year, they can start in December when it's released for the 24-25 academic year, but so long as they get it in by June 30th, that's the imperative part there. When they complete the FAFSA, they want to make sure that they list an Alaska institution. Again, even if they're going to be going out of state, that's okay. They can list an Alaska school. That just triggers the APS information to get to them should they want to use it anytime in the future. And then it doesn't hurt to do that afterwards. You are certainly not under any obligation when a student fills out a FAFSA to attend any or all of the colleges that are listed on their FAFSA. So they can easily do that. And then it's really important that the student create what's called a student aid, an ACAP account, or the student aid portal at our website. They can also, by the way, access student aid for their FAFSA on the ACAP account on our website if they haven't done that. So what the student aid portal, the Alaska Student Aid Portal is, it's on our website through the state of Alaska, which is altogether different from FAFSA. They're not going to find it on the FAFSA website. Oftentimes students get state financial aid and federal financial aid mixed up, and it's understandable. So we recommend that you always explain this is directly through the state of Alaska. Go to the ACPE agency, not the regular state of Alaska website, but to acpe.alaska.gov. They would simply go to APS, or Alaska Student Aid Portal. Sometimes they may get confused and create a loan account. That's okay. If they don't have a loan, they don't have to worry about it. They can just go back to the Alaska Student Aid Portal, create an ACAP account, and they can monitor their own money. Now, we get lots of calls on, where's my money? How do I know if I'm eligible? And it empowers a student to create their own account. It takes like 2 minutes, literally, to create an account. They can go on to this account. They can see if they're eligible. It will say the student is eligible or not eligible. It will let them know based on the academic year that they're going to college, where their money is. We show a legend. I think I have that on there right here, a legend that says your applicant, where they are in the process. If you look down here, it'll say the fall and the term. It'll say whether they were awarded. And this, by the way, also applies to the AEG, not just the Alaska Performance Scholarship, but the Alaska Education Grant. They can monitor where their money is in the process. And the way APS is awarded at a lot of colleges, but not all of them in the state of Alaska, UAA, for example, they won't award the APS money until after the drop add period, or the AEG money until after the drop add period, which means they start their semester, and if we have anyone from UAA, feel free to jump in and help me out here. I'm just going based on my own personal students account. So they wait till after the drop ad period. And the reason I want to say this is because sometimes students freak out and they think, I know I'm eligible for APS. Where's my money? Where's my money? Well, it's going to be there. They just wait till you get through the drop ad period. And hopefully if a student has created a direct deposit account, they get their money a lot quicker, and it goes into their account a lot quicker. So I highly recommend that if there are direct deposit accounts at your colleges within the state of Alaska. Of course, this money only applies to colleges within the state of Alaska. Why? Well, we want to keep our own, we want to keep our own students. So this is one of our incentives of doing that. That's the way most state financial aid works. It only works for the colleges within that state, whereas federal grants and scholarships may go travel with you wherever you go. State financial aid doesn't do that. That stays within the state to hopefully build up their workforce within the state. And of course, that's how we do it. So again, they will not get their money until usually after the drop ad period. So if it shows on the student aid portal that they in fact were awarded their money and where it is in the process, it's been sent to the school, or you've been awarded a form, but we're waiting on something or other, it will tell them on their Alaska Student Aid portal. They just monitor it themselves. Of course, they can always call us. They can call our 800 number in Juneau. We can also give them that information. But again, it's more empowering to let the student do it themselves and see it. It's very easy to navigate the Alaska Student Aid portal to check where their money is on a yearly basis, and pretty regularly. It does not usually show up on college accounts until the money has been awarded on their student account. So again, this is what the legend looks like, and it'll tell them where they are for whatever semester and whatever year they are in. Reporting academic eligibility. It usually starts, and I recommend that any of the go-to people let students know to take a proactive role in this. Counselors do their best, and they're juggling a lot of things, and sometimes things slip through the cracks, or sometimes they give misinformation. Sometimes we give misinformation. That's just how things work sometimes, especially when things are rapidly changing. APS, thankfully, isn't rapidly changing. But just because a counselor says, okay, this class is APS eligible, check and double check. Always take a proactive role. And if you can check to make sure, the last thing you want to do is find out that algebra class that was algebra 1 extended, the one that goes for the full year. We always have problems with that. That doesn't qualify. It has to be the regular algebra 1 class, for example, or say maybe a science class that you thought was going to qualify, didn't qualify. And here you are, your last semester of your senior year. Otherwise, you have a 3.6 GPA. And then one of your classes, lo and behold, it just did not qualify. You never want to find or have a student, and trust me, we've had many students fall into this category, we had one time when a counselor inadvertently, and of course the counselor learned, but it's a learning process. They accidentally made mention that UAA doesn't use the ACT or SAT because they're open enrollment, which is true. They are open enrollment. So the students were led to believe, because students hear what they want to hear, that they did not have to take the ACT or the SAT to qualify for the APS. Well, they do have to have that. So because they didn't take the ACT or the SAT, they weren't eligible for the APS. So again, make sure that students take a proactive role in checking, and that they check with the counselors, and to make sure that by the time they graduate from high schools, the counselors, the schools will send the information to the school district. The school district has a period of time to make sure that they met the criteria based on the rigorous curriculum requirements. And they send the information to the Alaska Department of Education. They finalize the list. And then usually the list gets back to us. ACPE administers the money. So by the time we get the list back, it could be mid-August. It depends on how long it's taken to qualify and make sure that everything's been met. So the student may not even know, unless they are a returning student, that they're eligible. This is why it is absolutely crucial that they create the ACAP account and keep checking that ACAP account to see if they are eligible. See where it says award and eligibility information. Once they create this account, they simply click on that award and eligibility information and it will let them know. And usually by mid-August, at the very latest, late August, they will see that information, even though they don't see it on their college online account. So they need to be checking that. And again, we went through the processes that, or the steps from the school to the school district to the Alaska Department of Education to verify and make a finalized list. Student reminders, be sure to apply early just to make sure, especially at any of the colleges that they plan to attend in Alaska, and make sure they have all their ducks in order. It will be dispersed through the financial aid office. It is not a scholarship that's dispersed directly to the student. So it will go through the financial aid office. So just monitor all of that closely. Continuing eligibility. There is continuing eligibility. So for the first year, a student simply has to complete 24 semester credits or be full-time, which is usually on most 3-credit system programs. It's usually 4 classes. That 4 classes would be full-time. If you have 4 classes, that's 12 credits in the fall, 12 credits in the spring. That's 24 semester credits for the year. And then they maintain a 2.5 on a 4.0 scale. That's the first year. Thereafter, they have to take on-time classes, which means 5 classes on a 3-credit per scale. So that means they complete 30 semester credits. So the first year, they're going to be completing 24 semester credits. The second year, they have to complete 30 to continue receiving the APS, and they have to maintain a GPA of 2.5 with that. So they are going to be increasing the amount of classes that they take from 4 as a full-time to what's considered on time, which is 5 classes per semester, so that they get those 30 semester credits in the year. And again, that FAFSA must be filled out every year, not just the first year, every year. If they miss the deadline for that academic year, they still have eligibility as long as they're within that 6 years for the next year. I thought I had more on this. So where can you get more information? We always recommend that you start with your go-to people in your community, your counselors, your Native organizations, and you can always get more information from our website. And just do a search. You can go to the U.S. Department, you can do it, the Alaska Department of Education. There's information there. And you can, if you need help creating ACAP accounts or understanding your ACAP account, of course, you can always call the Success Center, or you can go directly to our website, scroll all the way to the bottom and just click on Success Center. We're in the black where the contact information is. If you can't find ACAP information as you're navigating, we have the loan information at the top, and then AKCIS, AEG, and APS right in the middle. You just click on them, or you can just scroll to the bottom, click on Success Center. You can go to You Can Book Me. It opens up a calendar. You can pick your own time, your own day, and schedule an appointment, and we go through it. It does not take long. It takes maybe 5 minutes to create one of these accounts, but I will contact you, send you a Zoom link. We can do it right from your phone, and it makes it easy for students. If you need help troubleshooting, And Felicia may be on right now listening, so feel free to jump in, Felicia, if you're on there. But if you do need help troubleshooting any kind of problems that may arise, Felicia Swanson is the program coordinator for APS. She's with the Department of Education, the Alaska Department of Education. Her contact number is here. You can start with us, and if you start with us, it's something minor that we can help you with. So I wouldn't open the floodgates to everybody contacting Felicia. I would recommend that you start with us, because usually it's something small that we can help you with. But if it's something that we thought this course was going to count, it said that it will, something like that, something that is way beyond our power to do, then Felicia would be the person that you would contact for APS information. Felicia, you want to jump in and say anything?
Sure. So yeah, this is my job. So if you have questions, please call me. Even if it's a specific student with a specific transcript and you just want to talk through it, that's fine. Just a couple of things that you said, Christina. The test taking date, we've adopted this in statute end of school year date, which is June 30th, which allows students to take those later ACT, SAT tests, with the caveat that it will most likely mean it will be a correction for the district, because it will take the district a while to get that result, and they will have already submitted their data file to the department. So you want to work in close contact with your data person to tell them, hey, this is going to be coming. Can you please check this and send those through to Felicia as corrections? And we can talk about the reality of what that means if that pertains to you.
That's
And
awesome.
then second, we do corrections. I don't know any other way to explain it other than there are gremlins in this system. You may think a student qualified, they may think they qualified, but for some reason in the data submission, something has gone haywire, or a course that should have been counted when the computer did the collection didn't recognize it. So we do corrections. I've done corrections 5.5 years into funding. So we can do that. And that's my contact information, and I'm here to help.
Awesome. So that gives a little more wiggle room there. Thanks, Felicia, to work with. So make sure you take a snapshot of Felicia's contact information should you need that. Okay. And that concludes this presentation, unless there are any questions. I'm going to look at the time because I know we have we're going to go into AEG real quick. This is what the You Can Book Me looks like. You just simply click on it, and on the orange here, and you can schedule an appointment, or you can call the number on the screen. You can also take a snapshot of this. The Alaska Education Grant, we'll quickly go through this one.
Christina, I apologize. We do have a couple of questions about APS in the chat box. Would you like me to read them out loud, or?
Yes, that would be great. Then everybody can hear them.
Nancy asks, how can we access a list of APS approved students through the high school counselors?
I don't think you can. This is a counselor accessing the APS eligible students.
No, Nancy is with Kodiak College.
The student would have to check their own eligibility. I don't know if the eligible students list is made available to, to my knowledge, I've never heard of a list being made available to colleges of all APS eligible schools. Now, I could be wrong. Felicia, do you know of any such list?
Not to my knowledge either, but again, that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I can see why a college would want a list of APS eligible students, but once the student graduates, they're 18, of course. I don't know if there's any legal reasons why we couldn't share that with the colleges, or whether we could, but the student would know on their ACAP account if they're eligible or not. So they can let the college know based on that information. And another thing is the colleges always talk directly with us, with our agency, on who's eligible, who's not, if there's any kind of discrepancy or where money is in the process. I'm not sure I fully answered that question, but I also don't think I have the exact answer to that, because I don't know of any kind of list that exists for that.
Thank you, Christina. We have 2 questions from Mariana. How is eligibility determined for a student who in their first semester is paid at half time, and then in the second semester the student chooses to register for 12 credits? Will they receive half for the first semester and full amount for the second?
Yes, they will, but they need to keep in mind that a student can go half-time and receive the APS, but I don't recommend that, because keep in mind they're only eligible for 8 disbursements. So if they've used 1 disbursement on a half-time status, that's 1 disbursement gone. There's only 7 disbursements left. You can only access the maximum amount per year. So it's not like that money's going to the back of to another pot, and the student can use that money because they save up all that money. They've already used 1 of their disbursements. So it's always best. And then the other thing is, keep in mind, if they go half-time that first semester, they still have to, within that first year, meet the qualifications for continuing eligibility of making 24 semester credits that first academic year. Now, if a student starts in the winter, it doesn't count that way. It works a little bit differently, but I still don't recommend. I think even though they can do that, they can use and receive their money, I don't recommend it. They're losing money by doing that, because they're only given 8 disbursements. The money will only be dispersed to them 8 times. And if they use 1 of them with a half-time status, they lose half of that money for that semester that they can't get back. Does that answer that question?
Oh, okay, Christina, this is Mariana. Okay, so I guess what I needed to know was what you said at the end, where if the student gets paid for, I wouldn't recommend it either, but let's just say they did that in their first year, and so they only got half, and so then they finished 12, so 18 credits, let's say in their first year, so they would still be required to finish 24. Is that what even though they only got paid, they didn't get paid the full-time amount their first semester?
Felicia, do you want to answer that one? On questions like that, I always refer them to our Juneau office.
Okay.
Yeah, I handle the yes, no, you got it, not the how you keep it. So yes, the Juneau office.
Okay, I was just wondering about those odd ones, odd enrollment. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Mariana. Yeah, I don't want to say something and then, oops, it's the wrong answer. I gave misinformation. I would rather defer that to someone who can, that has those special cases that can give you a definite answer. Okay. So that misinformation isn't given to the student. And one other thing I want to mention, the APS or the work keys, this was regarding the work keys. It's not just, it can also be used for the schools and training programs that don't require the FAFSA. Like NIT or the beauty schools, Metro Oasis, Trendsetters. There's one in the Matsu Valley. There's a beauty school in the Matsu Valley, or there's even an aviation, Land and Sea Aviation. It can also be used for schools that don't have the FAFSA, in which case a student doesn't have, they can submit the FAFSA, but they just have to, submit it. There's another form that they actually fill out for those schools that don't use the FAFSA. So that's there's also that. So keep that in mind. And the intent forms I want to mention, we used to send out intent forms, usually sometime in the spring or early summer for students, but it got to be so confusing that we're no longer sending out intent forms. So if you're wondering about those of you who have been with us for a while, we are no longer going to be sending out the intent forms. So any other questions?
Thank you, Christina. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Catherine says we may be able to keep more students in state if we could show them as pre-qualified before they have to make a school decision May 1st. Wondering if there is hope we can explore options to pre-qualify or qualify students before May 1st. Is this part of the House bill?
I can't answer that. That's way above my power range.
I
I'm not
can.
even sure. Okay.
I can.
Okay.
So Representative Andy Story is the person here in Juneau. She's a representative in Juneau that has been trying to push through the changes in the APS. And one of the things that has been in the bill previously was eligibility decided at the junior level. Like they'll know where they're at and what they have to take when they're a junior. So that's what I can tell you about that.
Which means they would qualify by the end of their junior year, in which case you would know. But again, it's not a done
no, they
deal
wouldn't
yet.
qualify. They would know where they're at as a junior and know what they'd need to take to qualify, to have that solidifying point of, yes, I can do this. And now I know what to do, to know whether they'd be qualified.
So they would know if they're on track then.
On track to be qualified, so that they could make that decision earlier.
Yeah. And there was some talk of changing it to qualifying by the end of the junior year. Again, that has not been done yet either. So thank you, Felicia, for letting us know that. So that's good news.
Thank you, Christina. Felicia, we have some comments. Other than that, let's see. We have, I think, one last question from Karen. Can an APS student take 12 credits and still use their APS scholarship after their first year?
Can they take 12 credits and still use their APS after their first year? Like say they started in the spring and just took 12 credits? Yes, they can. They can. Because that works a little bit differently. And that I did hear straight from the horse's mouth in Juneau. If they start a semester not at the beginning of the fall term, they can still use their APS, even though if they started that late start. There's some sort of terminology for that, but essentially that first semester doesn't count. They start it after that. So the answer to that is yes.
If it's the fall of senior year, would that work?
Oh, no. Okay, so the APS starts once they graduate.
Oh, I'm talking about college senior year.
Oh, okay. Yes, they can use it as long as yes, they can, because if they're starting their first, are you saying if they're starting their first APS eligibility the fall of their senior year, the first disbursement?
No, already had some disbursement. I thought it had to be 30 credits a year, but yes, I wasn't sure.
It does. And in those different scenarios where they maybe did their 30, they met the continuing eligibility, and then for some reason it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to continue. Those are the perfect scenarios to contact Felicia to see if that will work, or the Juneau office, because that is beyond the information that I can give.
Okay, thank you.
For particular situations.
Thank you, Christina. So yes, so Stacy's question has been asked by Felicia. Thank you. And there's an additional question from Nancy. If a student did not qualify for APS due to the ACT or SAT scores, can they appeal?
Felicia, do you want to answer?
I can take that. Currently there is no way to waive testing. It's written in the statute in a way that without a governor's COVID, without anything that overwrites the way that it's written in statute, the testing has to happen. And the sob stories I could tell you of things that have happened to students that only had one opportunity and weren't able to make it. I understand the frustration. So again, Andy Story, Juneau, putting the House bill through, would like to hear what you think, and hopefully we'll get it through the legislature this time.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you for all the questions, and thank you for sharing your expertise, Christina and Felicia. We are past our time. So Christina, I will leave it to you. Would you like to cover Alaska Education Grant and for those individuals? If you also, Christina, have the time to go over the last presentation, marketing your event, or would you like to
I can do the AEG real quick.
Okay.
It'll take about 6 or 7 minutes. And the AEG is basically what a student needs to know is, it started back in 2004, but it awards up to 4,000 max. And this, unlike the APS, is not based on merit. This is strictly based on need, which means if you have a large family or a low income family, you may qualify for this. If you're eligible for the Pell Grant, you have to be a Pell Grant recipient, then you'll be eligible for this, and it can be used half-time or full-time, but you only get half of it if you're a half-time student. The AEG aggregate, unlike the APS, you have to meet the minimum qualifications of GPA required at the school. Through the lifetime aggregate amount is 16,000. So however long it takes you to get through college, you're eligible until you reach 16,000. Of course, you have to be a resident of Alaska. You apply by filling out the FAFSA. If you're eligible for the AEG, we will notify you. Now, the AEG money, unlike the APS, runs out. So I highly recommend that the student fill out the FAFSA early, because it goes by Pell eligibility and date that the FAFSA was submitted. So you want your name at the top of the list when the FAFSA comes out. Have students, I cannot tell you how many students have lost out on an additional $3,000 or $4,000 per year because they're eligible for the full amount of the Pell Grant, and they waited too late to fill out their FAFSA. So for this year, they can't. For 1 year, they may not be able to get an additional $3,000, $4,000. And if someone's giving you $3,000 or $4,000, you don't want to wait. You want to fill out the applications as soon as possible. Again, you create your ACAP account to monitor your AEG money. It has the same information on there. These are all the colleges that use the AEG. So there are quite a few. And if you have questions, of course, you can call us. But the main thing is to create your ACAP account and fill out the FAFSA early, because lots of students do miss out when our money runs out. When it's out, it's out. And there's nothing we can do until the next year for those students. Any questions on that?
I see Adrian.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Has her hand raised. Adrian, do you have a question to Christina?
I have just real quick. Are you guys planning on, and maybe I missed a notification, any Super Bowl, which you used to do prior to the pandemic, any Super Bowl at the conferences at the high school level, junior and seniors? You know, you used to do that every year.
You're talking about College Goal Alaska's?
Yes, so that the students and the counselors, this is two-part questions. Can you do a blast to all counselors or just the head counselors at critical points so the students don't miss out? Send them an email so they can share this information. And also, are you going to do the bowl?
No, we no longer do the Alaska College Goal Alaska's, but we do have FAFSA time Alaska, or FAFSA Wednesdays.
Okay.
Dominica does that. Dominica, I'll let you speak on that.
Thank you, Christina. So I will go ahead and share the ACPE Financial Aid Resource Guide. And I would strongly
Check it.
encourage individuals to check our Alaska FAFSA completion site for all the resources that we offer for FAFSA completion. And so I can share that with the group later today.
You really touched on miscommunication, and I've been doing this for about 10 years. Is there any digital banners that can just appear on counselors' email that says SAT and ACT is required? Thank you so much.
So are you talking
You know,
about
like once a
FAFSA?
month.
Are you talking about FAFSA completion or specifically with Alaska Performance Scholarship? And now after the pandemic is done, we are done with it, then we need the score tests back.
Yeah,
for
I'm
students
talking
to
about
be
the
eligible.
yes, ma'am. I'm talking about the APS eligibility for the SAT and the ACT. So many counselors have been giving out the wrong information that is not required. And those are two independent things, the FAFSA and the AEG, I'm sorry, the SAT and ACT. Both of them are required. Both of them are really, very helpful and you need them. But the counselors at the high school level are still giving out, even after the pandemic, the misinformation that is not required in order to get the APS. And that's not a true fact now that the pandemic has entered. So do we have any digital banners that we could just put across counselors' desks? Or maybe just the head counselor?
We do have downloadable APS information brochures on our website that you can just go to our website and just download these and just Xerox copies. We can also mail them to you, but it's a lot easier and a lot quicker, particularly for students to just be able to pull it up on their phone or to have it ready to share that link. But yes, you can download the APS brochures that have that information on it to make sure that you fill out your FAFSA. And that's what I strongly recommend. These days, everything is going electronic. So by all means, we make those available on our website. We also have the paper version, but we try to cut back, of course, to cut down on paper usage. But yes, we do have that information for you.
Thank you so much, Christina. I can't stress enough early applications for all of these so that you can qualify. And because some of these are time sensitive, that APS portal that you talked about is just so important for ownership. But for the counselors and the programs that are administering these and counseling the students, it's really important that they stress the earlier you apply, the earlier you create your portal, the better you can be in track of your scholarship and post-secondary journey. Early yes. Application. Thank you, Christina.
Good advice. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments or?
Felicia and I just shared the checklist for the Alaska Performance Scholarship in the chat box, downloadable material from our website.
Perfect. Thank you.
Adrian, thank you for your feedback. I will take your feedback to our supervisor, Kate Hillenbrand, to see if we can address this miscommunication. So thank you, Christina. Thank you so much.